All right, my friend. It is good to be talking to you, Mr. Admiral Gibbs. I've been meaning to catch up with you for a bit, and that's primarily because you introduced me to my current drug dealer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good.
some
It's a good
primo
switch.
fucking shrooms out of that guy.
Yeah, he's got some fantastic stuff. I'll tell you that. But we're talking
Um.
about a GT. We're talking about a GTA Twitch. If anybody's asking.
Oh yeah. In a video game. In a video game.
Yeah.
Not a real drug dealer. Just a hypothetical, non-existent drug dealer who hypothetically sells hypothetical LSD and hypothetical shrooms, and
Yeah, I would
which
have
I
one.
have hypothetically taken, but not IRL because that would be illegal and
That'd be bad.
violation of the Controlled Substance Act. It's funny.
Yeah.
I was telling my girlfriend, like, what should I talk to you about? And she was like, "Oh, why don't you both talk about psychedelics?" Which I thought was like a funny way to start.
Psychedelics. Yeah, I'm not a big psychedelics guy. I've never been. I did. I'll tell you a story. I My ex-wife was is Native American, well, like half Native American. I don't know. Anyway, we like part of what we did. We had to go like do the sweat lodges with the peyote, and I tell you what, I did not enjoy that shit. If I was to say the things I do enjoy, and anytime I've ever done shrooms, I fucking in GTA obviously I've gotten the fucking churro and just spent half the time shitting. So not my favorite things to do,
Holy
generally.
shit!
Yeah, so I'm more of an uppers kind of guy. But yeah, what else did you want? You got like
Oh yeah. Well, the idea was we're going to talk about the election. I'm sure that was probably going to be
yes,
interest of you because it's only a few weeks away,
I'm
and
pretty ready for it.
half this country. Let me rephrase that. 100% of this country feels like we're on the precipice of an existential crisis, but for very different reasons. With half
I
of
agree with
them,
that.
yeah, you agree with that? I've already cast my ballot. I've already cast my vote. We have early voting, and if memory serves, we're in the same place. You okay there, brother?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm good. Go ahead.
Have you voted yet?
Um, no, but I'm going later this week.
You're going later this week. Would it be okay
Yep.
if I asked who you voting for?
Trump. I vote for Trump.
Trump. All right. So that's interesting to me. Why?
Well, because the alternative is about as bad as an alternative as I can think of for me.
Why is so? It's funny you say that. It's you're not voting for Trump based on any virtue of Trump's. It's because you don't like Kamala.
Yeah, I mean, if I've had to sit here and go, it's like, look, if I look at her voting record as a senator, if I look at her economic policy, not a fan of any of them. She didn't fix the border like at all, and the border has been something I've been dealing with even on my ranch.
To be
Like I've
fair,
had
neither did
people.
Trump. Trump didn't fix the border either.
Well, that's true. However, I will tell you, Abbott has been doing a good job on the border, and I have definitely will say we've lost $1,000 due to like illegals crossing on ranch land between me and my family. We were talking about this literally with the guest before you, talking about how you've killed some of our cattle and eaten it and shit, and like I mean I don't really fault them for that. If you're starving in the middle of you know whatever, I would probably have killed the cow and ate it too. I mean, hey, fuck it. Like I empathize, but it is a problem that needs to be fixed, right? And I know Abbott has done quite a bit.
But
And
well,
Abbott
Abbott hasn't
is,
fixed it though. In fact,
I mean,
arguably, he
80%
made
drop
it
off.
worse. He took over
What do you mean?
well, he took over a park from the city. They didn't even want him to take over a park. He established buoys that ended up trapping people, causing them to cross in more dangerous locations where they inevitably
Mhm.
drowned. You have
Yeah, that was a good thing.
dead bodies as a consequence of this is a good thing.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, it's a deterrent. If you know that you might play stupid games and win stupid prizes, I would say yeah, it's a good. He also
Well, shit.
secured.
Why
He
not?
also secured 3 islands in the Rio Grande, destroyed a bunch of infrastructure, got over 480 million hits of lethal doses of fentanyl off the streets. About 500,000 immigrants have been captured. They've had an 80% turnaway rate at the places he secured. Yeah, Operation Lone Star has been a wild success by like any metric.
Yeah, if your metric is human death and misery, like congratulations. I kind of want to like focus on that. You don't seem to have an issue that this is as a program, this operation has caused people to cross in more dangerous locations where they die. Somebody has to collect those bodies. Somebody has to deal with the dead.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm well aware of that. I mean, yeah, I mean that's unfortunate, but like shouldn't have been crossing those illegally in the first place. You should have been going through the legal route.
Well, they go through they go through here illegally because the legal route's too hard, right? Fixing the border, fixing the immigration issue would mean you fix the immigration system such that it's easier to immigrate and you don't have an incentive to illegally immigrate, right? We have
I
laws
listen.
like
I listen. I don't know why I'm surprised we're doing two immigration debates today, but even last one, I've argued on many times. like for reform, and this is why Trump's bill H1 316 or whatever I can find it. I had it pulled up just a few seconds ago. Was better. It basically gave all the stuff the Dems wanted. Included the wall. The only thing it didn't include is DACA. The Dems shut it down because the Trump space revolted and said no DACA. We'll do everything else. They shut that one down, and basically, and then the same group of people that revolted the first time, and Trump goes, "Okay, I'm siding with you again" on the most recent border bill, was because they didn't want to secure the border this time on the last one, and so it's kind of like yes, like when it's 30-40% of people are overstaying are asylum seekers.
It's
You have a large
60%
position
of people are overstaying their visas. I'm sorry, and the asylum. I said you said asylum seeker. I'm sorry, I jumped the gun there. I thought
Yeah,
you were talking visas.
yeah, 30%. The visas thing has gone way down. That's not a big problem anymore. Not with the current immigration crisis.
Hmm?
I mean, we also have like a massive number, saying like 15%, 20% now is criminal illegal immigration. Like that's a problem. Like, and when I say this is things, people just go, yeah, it's such a small number. I'm like, well, at what point is it a big enough number
No,
for
it's
y'all to care
the
about?
border crossings is a big issue. I don't deny that. I just don't see why you would trust Trump to do it when the first time he had a full Congress, he couldn't do it. He shut down the government for the longest shutdown in U.S. history because he couldn't do it. And the only time we actually got an actual bipartisan bill, the Langford bill, Trump shut it down because he wanted the issue to run on it. He doesn't seem to take the issue seriously, so I don't
It
know why you
wasn't
would be
him that
voting for
shut
him.
down. It was the border Republicans that shut it down.
No, Donald Trump shut it down. Donald Trump told people to oppose the bill so that he could run on the issue.
After his constituents also.
Okay, so he did do it then.
I mean, he's partially responsible, but just like the constituents, like I don't know if you watched any of the panels I was on, but from day one, before Trump ever came out against the bill, I was screaming about how bad the bill was, right? And like, there's a large group of constituents that are along the border saying this is not what we want. This is not going to get the job done.
Let me delve into that because this is a bill that offers, what is it? It's a cap of 5,000 migrants per day with a unilateral authority for the federal government to shut down the bill, would hire more immigration judges to streamline the process, and it would increase the amount of Border Patrol agents on the border. Why is this a bad bill?
All right. Why was the H1 whatever bill before that?
I'm not going to answer your question. You can answer mine.
Sure.
We're not going to go on a goose chase.
Well, I will answer this question.
Like, I don't know anything about the H1 bill, but I know about this bill,
Sure.
and I want to know why you think this bill is a bad bill.
I will give you that. I'm going to give you both answers, right? And this is why the H1 bill was a good bill, right? The H1 had much more security aspects, right? This is the analogy. I survived Hurricane Harvey. I stayed in there. I worked with FEMA and whatnot. And the same thing happens in New Orleans is when the levees break, right? The water comes in. There's no reason to get the pumps out and start pumping the water out when you didn't seal off where the water is coming from. Same thing here. If we don't seal off the border, it doesn't matter how many judges we get because the flow is just going to keep coming. That's like not the solution. You have to stop the bleeding, then treat the wound, right? And that's where we're at right here. We got to stop the bleeding and then treat the wound. And it's just I don't see how one person can argue. Yeah, sure, some of that stuff was good. I'm sure the Border Patrol did want that money. The Border Patrol is desperate for any money they can get because they've been underfunded. Like, a lot of government agencies have been underfunded. However, whenever we're sitting here going, you're not going to build a bigger wall and we're not going to secure this. And when I say wall, I don't literally mean just a wall. I mean, it could be drone swarms, it could be the death balls, it could be whatever, but we need a secured border where they are forced to go into the legal avenues because that'll prevent sex trafficking, that's going to prevent the drug smuggling, that's going to prevent a lot of things to force them through legal avenues, and it's also going to prevent property damage to ranchers and other people that live along the border. And I just am sitting here going, hey, we have these problems. Let's stop the bleeding and then do some reform, which is what the Trump bill wanted, and that the Democrats shut down because it didn't have DACA. Then we look at the newer bill, which had less money going to judges than even the Trump bill did, and that didn't even include DACA. Yeah, and that didn't even include the border security stuff. Had nothing for the wall. I would say it's a much worse bill, and I didn't like it at all because we need the wall. We got to have the wall, right? Like, it's both. We need both reform, we need judges, and we need a secure border. And like, I don't know why that's so controversial.
Okay, I'm just as confused as I was the first time I asked that question because that bill did include funding for additional wall. It did include
Not
funding
enough.
for. Okay, so it didn't fix it enough for you, so you opposed it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have.
You don't seem that serious about stopping like, to use your analogy, to stopping the flooding. If you're like, well, it didn't stop the flooding enough, so fuck it all. Let's just keep the flood open. That doesn't make sense to me. It funded precisely what you wanted. It funded more barriers, more personnel, more surveillance.
But you don't get to be on the high hill on this issue, whenever there was a bill with more funding for everything you're saying, plus the wall that was issued just a couple years before, and Democrats shot it down for DACA, which they didn't even include in this bill. You
I'm
don't
not
even
on
find
any
ground
hill.
rules.
I'm talking about Donald Trump and his opposition to a bill that would have objectively improved the border situation because he wanted
Uh,
to run on the political issue, which is what happened.
I'll answer this. This is fine. I don't think this is a fair question, but sure, I'll answer it even by your own metrics here. If if I like in this scenario, yeah, it fixes it some. It helps some, right? Sure, this is just like a slower death, right? It's better, like in my opinion, to go, okay, y'all need to realize this is a real problem because I know for a fact that I keep getting hand waved when I say, oh, like just this week, last week, I literally had an illegal immigrant crash into our fiber optic thing. And I only know this because it was on the news, and they took out our internet. That was the real reason why I didn't have internet on Wednesday and didn't do panels. And this is the same after a week before we caught 16 Trinidad people in San Antonio, literally they're literally across the street from a place I was the night before. And if like, and then there's all sorts of other shit in Dallas that went down. All these things, I see these issues happening every day, and it's like, yeah, it's bad. But when I say this, people like north of me go, yeah, it's not that bad. They're all asylum seekers, or they're all visa stays. It's not an issue. And I'm not saying you said that because you already said, yeah, there's some issue, right? But like, it's hand waved. And so when I go, oh, I see this bill, and they're giving us like a piecemeal lip service effort that might slow 5% when Texas is already going ahead and doing this on their own, and we're being fought tooth and nail, being sued by the Biden administration for securing these areas. Like, and then we see an 85% drop off in illegal crossings in the areas where we put up these barriers. It's like, okay, hey, y'all really don't want to actually solve this. Y'all want to just give us enough lip service to say, look, we did something about it when it's not actually going to fix the problem. And I'd rather it be such a problem that everybody sees that, hey, this is a problem, we need to do something, as opposed to, hey, we'll just make it a slow death for y'all down there. Like sometimes you got to draw attention to an issue to get it actually fixed.
No, if you do that, you don't take the issue seriously whatsoever. I mean, I sympathize. I'm with San Antonio. I'm not north of you, right? I sympathize with that immigration can be an issue. I sympathize with the fact that we've got a border that is porous that has its own issues. I'm talking about a bill that addresses so many of those issues you're talking about by capping the amount of immigrants who can
Yeah,
come
but it
here.
didn't.
Let me talk. I just let you finish. By capping the amount of immigrants who could come here at 5,000 before the border is shut down. Not reduced, not streamlined, shut down. The Department of Homeland Security could shut down the border. There's an end to catch and release. There's a provision to combat fentanyl. All of the things you were describing as issues, this bill has provisions addressing. This was the most conservative immigration bill that ever had a realistic chance of passing. The one negotiated by Senator Langford and Kristen Sinema. Like, these people are not. These are not tree-hugging hippies who are kumbaya for an open border. This is a real bill that had a real chance of passing, and Donald Trump, by his own admission, caused this bill to not be passed, caused this bill not be taken up because he wanted the issue to debate on. I don't understand my question, which is what you still haven't answered. Why do you trust him with this track record, these facts? This is factually true. Why would you trust him with these facts?
All right, I'll tell you the reason why I trust it, because two things. We can look at the thing. One, this is a much less comprehensive bill. And I guess it's three things really. One, this is a much less comprehensive bill than the H163 like 16 bill, right?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
Uh,
A less what bill?
it's a much less comprehensive bill. Doesn't give us near the border security or the funding for the wall. And like I said, that bill included everything you're asking for. And I'll even send it to you. Everything you're asking for, as well as basically, here, one second, bam. It includes all the stuff you asked for. The only thing and it has the stuff on the wall. It doesn't include the DACA, which neither one of these bills included DACA, which was why Schumer and Pelosi shut it down over DACA. So the argument is that it didn't go through because it was the most likely to go through. No, this one actually had unanimous support, not unanimous. It had a unilateral support on both sides. It was going to be a bipartisan bill. It was also going to be done, and Schumer and them shut it down over the DACA issue, right? When all of this a lot of this, even the Biden administration immigration problems, probably could have been prevented if this bill had passed. Two, I would say when I look at Texas, Texas has done a very good job under Abbott with Operation Lone Star. Like, it's been a wild success by like pretty much every metric. I don't really really know how anybody can argue that it's not been. And then I see that these things are working, right? And I go, hey, if we continue those, Trump at least wanted to continue those, gave us lip service, and looked like he was starting to continue those. Versus Abbott has continued on that and then gone further. And what I have seen from the Biden-Harris administration is they go, hey, we're going to tear down segments of the wall. We're going to sue at you and try to stop you with injunctions. We're going to fight you, say this is government overreach by the Texas government. And then three is historical as a Texan. I don't know if you're from Texas or not originally, but I am. I'm adopted, but my family's been here since the revolution. One of the reasons we fought a war with Mexico on our own is independence. The second reason Texas fought a war with Mexico was after the first war of independence. We fought another war to establish the Rio Grande, not the Nueces border, Nueces River as our southern boundary. And then the Mexican-American War was fought primarily, according to Zachary Taylor, over the Rio Grande being the southernmost border. So not only that, as a Texan, we have an historical obligation to uphold this border with the United States. That was a premise of us joining the Union, and they're not upholding that the border down here. And so, yeah, I think that they're basically spitting in their face saying that y'all don't matter. And when I look at who's going to be more likely to be on my side, it's not the border czar Kamala, and it's not the Biden, people coming down. I'm just going to see more of that. I don't see why there would be any change. So if I have to choose which side I trust, I at least trust Trump not to get no Abbott's way. If you have to take my logic.
I hear your logic. I don't agree with your logic. I support and love the Constitution. The reason the Biden administration sued Abbott was because states can't run their own foreign policy. And there's already been a Supreme Court case that's dealt with this. We've already have Supreme Court precedent that says you're not supposed to be running your own foreign policy, which this is. As for your criticism, this bill is less comprehensive. It doesn't get us near the border, the border security or funding for the wall. This is a very comprehensive bill. There are thousands of new judges that would be hired. There'd be the end of catch and release. There would be a cap on 5,000 migrants a day. There'd be 50,000 new employment and family-based visas created for the immigration system, as well as there's stop the aging out part for green card delays. There's a lot in this bill that is very comprehensive. And if you're trusting Donald Trump, he didn't get this done. He had a full Congress, a House and a Senate. He didn't get this done. He didn't fix the issue. Like I said, there's no reason to trust him. I can guarantee if this bill ended up on Biden's desk, he'd have signed it. You can't say they're for an open border. You cannot say, Barack Obama. You cannot say Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are for an open border when they have an immigration bill. You cannot say that.
Immigrants around,
no, the only people who've been shipping immigrants around is Greg Abbott by busload, sending them to Martha's Vineyard.
That's been a whole thing.
Okay, so to my point, Republicans. I don't trust Republicans to solve this issue because they haven't solved this issue. Because what they do is they create barriers that get people killed, and they take existing migrants who are here under false. Let me talk.
Hold on. This is a bad thing. All right, this is a bad thing, right? So I know we're arguing over the death, and this I think maybe is the thing that we're disagreeing on. If the border's secured on someone, it's just the point that someone dies because they can't cross it. Is that an effective barrier that's stopping people from coming in? Yes or no?
No, that's not. It's a stupid barrier.
No. Is it effective? Yes or no?
No, it's not effective. It's an ineffective barrier.
If you literally die, you weren't able to cross it. That's an effective barrier.
The point of a barrier shouldn't be to kill you. The point of the barrier should be to prevent you from entering in the first place. And if your argument is that it prevents people from entering by killing them, well, fucking electrocute the whole Rio Grande. Right? Have border guards shoot. Would you be fine with border guards, border patrol shooting migrants?
I would be okay with they were shooting.
Really? Yeah. Let's say 1,000 immigrants are killed a year. Would you be fine with that?
If it gets to stops the overflow, yeah.
What if it's 10,000 immigrants per year?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if there are 10,000 people crossing illegally,
then what if it's 100,000 immigrants per year?
I mean, that's why you need a wall or a deterrent so big that they can't cross.
This doesn't solve the issue, is my point. And if all you're saying is, well, we should just shoot the migrants,
but hold on,
you're giving the state incredible power to exercise dictatorial.
Here's what you're missing.
What am I missing?
You're missing. If they wouldn't even be shot if they weren't breaking the law in the first place.
Okay, they are. We have a bad immigration system that incentivizes people to break the law.
Right,
we have a piss-poor immigration system that tells people it's better. Do I have a right
to shoot somebody who comes on my property?
No. I don't know what you're shocked about. You have a castle doctrine, which is very limited for specifically nighttime incursions in which you have a reasonable reason to believe that a reasonable threat to your life or your property. Castle doctrine.
If you put trespassers will be shot.
Do you think you could just shoot somebody for just coming onto your property?
As long as you warn them to leave and give them warning, then yeah, absolutely.
If I put a sign on my front porch that says trespassers will be shot, and a Jehovah's Witness crosses onto my property to knock on my door and I shoot them, are you seriously saying I'm justified in that shooting?
There have been cases where that.
Let me ask the question again. Are you saying I'm justified in that shooting?
I'm saying there have been cases that said that they were justified.
I'm going to ask you the same question again. Are you saying that I'm justified in that shooting?
I'm going to say possibly.
Possibly. Shooting a Jehovah's Witness who's trying to knock on my door.
If they come past my property and I have all over my property, no trespassers will be shot, and you choose to trespass, then yeah, I think they might be within their rights to shoot at them.
Okay. I don't. This is why I said at the beginning that we stand on the precipice of an existential crisis, because I look at America and I see the Statue of Liberty, and then I look at you and I see you standing opposite to everything this country stands for. That you don't believe in give me you're tired, you're hungry, you're poor, and you're huddled masses. You don't seem to agree or support the idea that America is a nation of immigrants. You seem to be a nativist who wants to exercise lethal force to keep other people out. I don't condone that. I feel like we're better than that. I feel like we're smarter than that we can come up with an immigration system that doesn't have to murder people to keep them out. I feel like the answer to our broken immigration system is repealing IRA, and coming up with immigration law that allows people to immigrate who want to immigrate here, that does proper vetting, that doesn't have silly...
these are all good things. I'm not opposed to any of those.
Republicans are opposed to all of those. Republicans are opposed to all of those.
Republicans are in favor of immigration reform if we get the wall.
Okay. You already had a chance to get some wall. It was this bill. It was the Langford bill.
We had a better chance, but the Schumer shut it down. Well, a much better bill. It was a much better bill.
I don't know anything about the Schumer bill. I don't know if
maybe you should educate yourself on it. Don't be saying it's Republicans shooting it down. Not only that,
it was Republicans who shot down the Langford bill.
The other bill wasn't even tied to Ukraine. This bill was also tied to Ukraine funding, and this is not a segment of Republicans I'm a part of. A whole different segment of Republicans revolted over that because they don't want to fund Ukraine. Now, whether or not we should is a whole different debate, and I'm in favor of funding Ukraine. However, you got two things smashed together, unrelated issues. So that's not that good of a bill, right? Because you have two different groups within the Republican Party that are revolting against this bill for different things, and then they're going to have the audacity of y'all to sit here and say this is a good bill whenever there was a better bill that Trump put forward that gave the Republicans what they wanted. They gave all of this stuff in this bill, and you're responsible. I don't know about that bill. I've already linked you to the bill. Go read through it. It gives you everything you wanted plus more, and then and it wasn't attached to Ukraine. That's not fair for you to sit here and do that. It's also almost dishonest, because you're sitting here going, hey, you know what? You got this bill. You're going to have to eat shit and like it. And when it's like, well, we gave you a better one just not too long ago. And and then y'all have the audacity to say it's us whenever y'all revolted over DACA. No, you don't get to play the high horse.
What was the bill called again?
I sent it to you. I sent it to you in the
DM. Let me look at it real quick.
But this is my point. It's we all want the reform. Everybody wants the reform. The difference is like I said with the New Orleans.
Wait. This bill failed the House in 2018?
Yeah, this is going to be the bipartisan one going through.
Gotcha.
But my point is,
I don't know how you can call it bipartisan if it fails in the House, but immediately, okay.
Schumer shut it down.
Why did Schumer shut it down?
Because of DACA.
Because of DACA. So why wouldn't you just include DACA?
Because Trump tried to include DACA, and the constituents revolted. They didn't want DACA, so he's like, "Hey."
Okay, so then it wasn't the Democrats who shut it down. It was Trump.
Hold on. No, it wasn't Trump. Trump said, "I can give you everything but DACA." And then here's the thing: if the Democrats actually cared about DACA, they would have included it on this other bill, but they didn't include it. So it's just a scapegoat for them to crash it and say, "Oh, Trump didn't do anything." So it's very dishonest to the framing that you're trying to do here. You can't sit here and go, oh, we're not willing to compromise, but Trump compromised on everything, and the only thing he couldn't compromise on was DACA because his base wouldn't go along with it, and he gave all the Democrats everything else and didn't attach it to Ukraine, and then y'all shot it down. And then when this bill comes around, two segments of Republicans were mad about it. There's the Ukraine people, which I'm sure there's some overlap with my kind of people, and then my group of people who are like, no, this bill's not good enough. And so sure, it's two different segments. So yeah, it's just not fair framing, the way you're framing this.
Okay, I'm not framing this in any way. I'm saying everything I'm saying is factually true. This is a bill I've never heard of. I'm looking into this bill, and the more I'm looking into it, I'm seeing that Republicans are opposed to it because they feel because they don't like the DACA, which is what you're saying too. And Democrats oppose it because it didn't provide a solution for DACA. There's the bill proposes a pathway to citizenship, but Republicans are already opposed to that. They've been opposed to the DREAM Act for decades, right?
The DREAM Act's bad.
The DREAM. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. There's a waste of investment with Republicans that they look at people who are here, who we spent all this money educating, all this money investing in, all this money to make good workers who can contribute to our economy, and they're telling us to get them out. Donald Trump's not running on immigration reform. He's running on the biggest deportation operation this country's seen since Operation Wetback.
I mean, regardless, I mean, I still would rather have Trump's policies than what we have with the Dems right now, which is open up the borders, let the floodgates in. Like,
you can't say that's their policy when they proposed a bill that they would have signed that would have closed the border.
But
that's just it's anti-reality. There's a bill that would close the border. You can't say they're opening.
Okay, all right. Do you agree that lip service is worthless for both sides, right? If one side says they're going to do something, it's not worth anything until we see actions, right? And when I look at the actions, Trump, even if he didn't do as much as I'd hoped on the border, he at least started doing stuff, right? And then I saw Abbott doing stuff, and I mean and the Biden administration, their track record is instead of enforcing the laws that are already on record, they have opposed those laws. They have reopened the border, and the argument has been, well, that's the federal government's prerogative to do that. And I'm going, well, hey, if I have to look and see which actions I believe are going to happen, why would the Biden administration and the Harris administration suddenly reverse all of what they've been doing with the lip service of a bill? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, I can only look at their actions and their history to look forward to seeing what they're doing. And their actions and history say that they're telling me to get fucked. Like, do you see where I'm coming from on this or no?
No, I don't. Was capping immigration at 5,000 migrants per day lip service?
Did they do it?
No, because Trump shut down the bill. They'd signed the bill into law, it wouldn't be lip service. Right? How about ending catch and release? Was that lip service?
Wait, Trump shot it down because he was in office?
No, Trump shot it down because he wanted the issue to run on. I didn't claim he was in office.
So then who shut down the bill before that had more of the stuff?
Mike Johnson, on the prerogative of Donald Trump, who wanted the issue to run on. Are you denying this?
I am denying this. Once again, I'm saying there's two segments of the Republican base, and Trump just went along with what they're saying.
Then why would you support somebody who doesn't have a backbone to make his own decisions?
Because he's looking out for what his constituents want. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Y'all are sitting there just like, oh, the left is so quick to blame Trump when it's like Trump is often doing what his people are asking him to do, right? And like y'all are going, oh, well, these aren't issues, and we're saying these are issues. This is not good enough for us. And I said this well before Trump came out. And then when Trump comes out and says that, y'all are like, nobody said this, only Trump said this, and he crashed it because he wanted the issue to run on. And I'm like, so what are we down here saying that this is not good enough? Are we chopped liver? Do we not matter as Americans? Like, that's what you're telling us because y'all are willing to overlook all of us saying that we didn't want it and just say it's all Trump's fault.
Okay, I'm going to read this to you. In recent weeks, Trump has been lobbying Republicans both in private conversations and in public statements on social media to oppose the border compromise being delicately hashed out in the Senate, according to GOP sources familiar with the conversations, in part because he wants to campaign on this issue in November and doesn't want President Joe Biden to score a victory in an area where he's politically vulnerable. Senate GOP leader Mitch McConnell acknowledged in a private meeting on Wednesday that Trump's animosity towards the yet-to-be-released border deal, so he didn't even know what was in it at the time, puts Republicans in a serious bind as they try to move forward on the already complex issue. For weeks, Republicans had been warning that Trump's opposition could blow up the bipartisan proposal. But the admission from Mitch McConnell was particularly striking given he had been a chief advocate for the border Ukraine package. Now Republicans on Capitol Hill are grappling with the reality that most in the GOP are loath to do anything that is seen as potentially undermining the former president. Donald Trump shut this bill down because he wanted to run on this issue to be president. I'm not saying anything that's untrue. Donald Trump is responsible for this border being as porous as it is because we had a real chance. Fake news.
And I'll tell you what, once again, you've glossed over everything that I just said. Like, and this is a real point. Do you agree or not agree that there are, I know we can agree on this, are there segments of the Republican base that want all funding to the Ukraine cut off? Yes or no?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yes, okay. So we agree on that. Was the Ukraine funding a part of this bill?
I think so. There might have been some, right? Yeah.
Sure. Can you also agree before Donald Trump saying?
Hang on. Well, let me look into that real quick. But I mean, you continue, but I'm going to look into that real quick.
So yeah, can you probably also agree that, like I said, people like me, there's other people that like in the Republican Party who sat here before Trump ever came out against this bill.
Sorry, repeat that.
Would you agree that there's people like myself and others in the Republican Party who have similar views to myself came out against this bill before Trump ever said anything.
Yeah, but I don't know why. You didn't know what was in the bill at the time.
I did know it was in the bill.
No, you didn't. It wasn't released.
The minute I knew it was,
Even before
the minute
Trump, it was not released.
The minute it was out, I was against it.
Okay, if it was the minute it was out, then it was after Trump was against this bill.
Trump is allegedly, allegedly. These are alleged calls. He said, she said. Sounds like
Mitch McConnell's acknowledging this, man. Do you think Mitch
McConnell's a turtle man? So whatever. He's not even in office right now.
So Mitch McConnell's making it up.
Who knows? People make up thoughts and shit all the time.
We can't live in the same reality. I don't know how to get to you if I'm reading something that Republicans are saying happened, and you're saying that's fake news.
But what you're saying is you're glossing over that there's a large segment of Republicans that were already against this in mass. Right.
There is a large segment of Republicans who are against any immigration reform except for shutting down the border, period.
Well, that's a part of it, but sure. I mean, that's a whole nother segment, right? But then, so you have three segments, even if we go by your logic. And I'm sitting here going, hey, all right, look, there's three groups, and then Trump represents many members of all three of these groups. And he goes, hey, I'm going to be an isolationist, which means maybe less funding in Ukraine. He goes, hey, I want to secure the border. That means different things to different people, but definitely more in my camp and more in this other group of camp than, say, some of these people that wanted the bipartisan bill, right? Okay, cool. So when I look at both of those and I look at the history, I go, hey, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not buying what you're selling. I mean, I don't know how you can sit here and argue with what I'm saying when like everything you're so focused on Trump, like it's TDS, that you won't even acknowledge that there are factions within the Republican Party that didn't want this from the start, just like there are factions in the Dems that want different things. Like,
okay, I'm focusing on Trump because Trump is running to be the next president of the United States, the chief head of the Republican Party, who tanked the best chance we've had at immigration reform in about 2 decades, so he could run for president. I'm focusing on Trump because we're about to vote on who the next leader was. By the way, that was what you agreed the topic should be, was the election at the beginning of this. That's why I'm focusing on Trump.
I agree with that. Yeah, let me add one more thing, though, is that you're arguing like Trump bad, right? And I've argued that I've seen evidence Trump has done more for what I've wanted for the border, as opposed to the Biden-Harris administration, who looks to me, based on what I said, you say they want these things, but whenever they've had an opportunity to do anything about the border, they've tore fences down. They've tried to stop Texas from stopping people, and they've allowed increase. Like literally, there's a video of them tearing down fences and migrants rushing that area. This is like a video, like a well-known video. Like it's shared all over all the platforms. There was news on it. It's like you see this. This is something you can see with your own eyes. It's not even debated, right? And then I've seen Trump go, I want to do mass deportation. I want to do the wall. If I have to choose between the two, it doesn't make me feel good to go with one out, but you got to go with the one when the other one is like, fuck you. You get where I'm coming from? What is your evidence that Kamala is going to help me as a Texan on this thing when it seems to me she failed miserably with the border issue? Like, let's ask that. Like, you're asking me to prove a negative. Why don't you prove on your end that Kamala will do something better?
I don't know how to prove that. They had a bill they were going to pass. Donald Trump tanked it. Yeah, if you want to blame the Democrats for that bill failing, knock yourself out, right? This bill the bill you're talking about never left the House. The one in 2018, this bill here was a bipartisan bill negotiated by chief Republicans, the most conservative Republicans, for the most conservative immigration bill.
But why are they enforcing laws currently, though? Like, there are already laws in the book that they're not enforcing.
They do. I know it's hard to believe, but immigrants are deported. They are deported all the time. Immigrants are not just allowed into the country. There is a process that you can legally claim asylum, even if you are not entering at a port of entry. That is an international law that we are part of. We already have law. You would complain we're not enforcing law? That is enforcing the law. I'm telling you, immigration law is bad, which is why it needs to be reformed, which is why this bill would have reformed it in a good way, because it would have streamlined the process to reduce the amount of illegal crossings, which is what you claim you want.
You're asking the question, how do you reach somebody like this? Right? I can't reach, and this is the argument I'm making, right, is that there is the evidence does not support what you're saying. They've not enforced the laws. They've torn down stuff. They've allowed the immigration crisis to continue, right? There have been multiple examples of laws they could are on the books now that we don't even need to do that would immediately shut down a lot of this stuff, right? And they choose to ignore those laws. And they like the Lake and Riley thing, there's also like Bill, there's all sorts of other stuff that gets shut down. They could have just like these people shouldn't have been here. They should have already been deported. There's all sorts of examples. All they had to do is like do the law, and they choose not to enforce those laws versus somebody that seems like they want a secure border. And you go, how do I reach you? Well, you can't on this issue.
I'm not convinced you want a secure border, my friend. I'm not convinced.
Well, they're not even trying to secure it.
They did. It was a Langford immigration bill.
So, but you're okay. But listen, even if they
built more fencing,
hold on.
It capped the amount of immigrants.
But hear what I'm saying.
It streamlined the asylum process.
Pass this bill, why would I believe they're going to enforce any of it when they haven't enforced the laws that are already in the books?
They have. More paperwork I already told you they have existing immigration law.
I have literal evidence supporting that they have not and gone against it. Like visual evidence. They're tearing down barriers. What is your evidence that that opposes that?
I don't have evidence that opposes that they tore down barriers. I don't think that's the end all be all of immigration law, and I think you're smart enough to know that's not either. That the immigration system is complex, that it is burdened by a short staff and a lot of applications that need to be processed. That's immigration law. They are enforcing the law. They don't have the manpower to do it, which is what this bill would have provided.
They have manpower to tear down like barriers and like let just large influxes come in. Do you see the catch-22 here? You can't walk and chew bubblegum while you're tearing down barriers that are preventing people from coming in, and they're going, oh, it's just the back problem.
I don't know what these. Can you link me to the barrier thing? This seems like a canard to me. This seems like the barrier is probably the smallest part of the immigration issue that really needs to be addressed. You show me a 10-foot wall, I can show you an 11-foot ladder. Barriers do not work. By and large, they do not work. All they might do is shift the issue to some other part of the border, right? But people will still cross. They will still find ways to come over. They still do. We have only tightened border security more and more since the 1980s. IRA was an attempt to tighten border security, right? Every single time we have, all that's happened is we've made it harder for people to immigrate and harder to solve this issue. This bill was one way we could start addressing this issue. You were complaining about the drip of illegal immigration as a floodgate. This would have stemmed the flood so we can actually address actual immigration reform, such as a pathway to citizenship for DACA recipients. We have 20 million illegal immigrants in this country. Donald Trump's running on a deportation operation to deport them all. That's not a serious reform. That's something you tell your base to give them red meat. Do you seriously think Donald Trump's going to deport every immigrant?
Here's a little video of them tearing down the wall. It's from X, but I can find news articles if you really want to debate it. But it's a real famous video. I just typed it in. I knew it'd pop up on X in like 10 seconds. But
I'm just going to point out there's border security right there. Nothing's being torn up. A forklift is lifting razor wire as they walk right into border security.
People are coming by. Thousands, bro.
Okay, I need to.
Why are they coming through legal means? Yeah, I'll share it in here, folks.
Well, I can't fucking do it on Discord. What this picture is a picture of a forklift lifting razor wire as migrants enter the border right next to Border Patrol. Do you think Border Patrol is getting all of these people and saying, oh, by all means, come on in. Here's your application for free housing and free healthcare?
Here's the video. Here's the video, folks. We'll share it on the screen.
I'm not denying anything about this. I want you to acknowledge there's Border Patrol right there.
On the wall.
There's Border Patrol right there. Will you acknowledge that?
They're like way over the side. Hundreds of people coming in illegally. You think this is acceptable?
I don't know. This is just outrage pornography right now. I don't know what I'm supposed to respond to. You give me this picture of them tearing down a barrier. What it is a forklift lifting razor wire so that people can walk into the custody of Border Patrol.
Hundreds of people, bro. Hundreds.
You can arrest hundreds of people. I'm not seeing evidence that immigration law is not being enforced here. In fact, I'm seeing the opposite. I'm seeing evidence that immigration law is being enforced.
Why are they coming through the normal passageways, bro?
Why do you think? Because immigration law is so bad, they're incentivized to immigrate illegally. None of that addresses anything. None of that addresses what I just said.
This is literally. You literally called a video of exactly what I said happened being outraged for. They literally tore open a barrier, and as soon as the barrier was tore open, hundreds of people crossed illegally.
To where? Crossed where? To where? Crossed to who? Who did they cross into? Border Patrol! Border Patrol! They crossed into Border Patrol, who's right there in the image. Men with guns, uniformed men of the United States government are right there in the image. We are in such an alternate reality world. Yeah. illegally crossed into Border Patrol. Who's going to be arresting them? Who's going to be...
I don't, what's crazy is
your issue is that people... You really think that? I've already acknowledged it's a problem, dog.
It's more stress on our... Like, okay, how many tax dollars do you think that we could have saved per person for not having to incarcerate those people if they had just stayed on that side of the border? How many?
We could save a lot of... They didn't stay on that side of the border. We could have saved a lot of tax dollars if we would actually streamline our immigration process so that people could immigrate legally a lot easier.
Nobody's got a problem with that, but we want...
Yes, Republicans do! They're talking about the... Republicans do. I don't know why that's so hard for you to acknowledge. They don't support DACA. They don't support the DREAM Act. They don't support the Langford... They don't support their own fucking immigration bill. Republicans do not support immigration reform. Donald Trump does not support immigration reform. Donald Trump said point blank, I want this issue to run on. He told Republicans to oppose the best chance we've had in immigration reform in 2 decades because he wants this issue to run on. This is not an issue you take seriously. If your house is on fire, you don't say, hey, don't grab the fire hose. I want to be very out. This will make a great fucking TikTok, right? You solve the fucking issue. If you're serious about the issue, you solve the fucking issue. Republicans didn't, and they don't.
But what do you mean? Okay, this is what's
just what I said. Right? Republicans didn't, and they don't. That's what I mean.
All right. This is, you know why? You know what, guys? I think you're right. I think you're right. Outrage porn might be appropriate. This is why. Is because there are so many laws on record that are already passed that they could be enforcing, and instead the Biden admin chose to tear down a barrier. That's where the outrage is. That's why I go, oh, well, when you say I'm not serious about solving it, and I'm just going, bro, they're tearing down barriers and letting hundreds in that are taxing their system, and you're going, like, what do you mean? Like, they're not enforcing it. If they could have just left the barrier up and then they were already maxed out on like all sorts of infrastructure for this issue, how does this help the problem?
Okay, let me ask you, from this picture that I'm seeing of the forklift lifting the barrier, your idea of enforcing this would have been to keep the barrier down.
Mm-hmm.
And all those people who law enforcement are arresting, you're saying they should have just stayed on that side of the barrier?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think they would have?
Probably.
They probably would have. If the razor wire remained, they would have stayed on that side of the barrier.
Came through much smaller, more manageable numbers.
Gotcha. And how long would immigration agents have to stay there to monitor them to make sure they're not going through the barrier?
Oh, that's what drones are for. So,
okay. So if they come over, you want immigration reform to pick them up away from custody? Like they've already crossed. Now you got to go find them again because you're watching them with drones?
All right. Once again, if we're talking about effectiveness, yeah, that's gonna be much more effective to like do a little Walmart drone or whatever police drone they already have to fly over these areas and then go scoop them in smaller numbers because there is deterrence factor. We know deterrence works. We've proved deterrence works with regular crime. I mean, it's like massive increases in deterrence whenever we do like cameras and lights in well-lit areas. So if imagine how much more deterrence razor wire, the death buoys, and all sorts of other deterrents are going to be. Like, if that's obviously going to reduce numbers by a significant margin, which decreases costs whenever we're having to hold all these people and wait for these. It also decreases backlog, which is a whole big thing the Democrats keep talking about. If y'all want to process all these immigration things, maybe stopping the flow would help get people through this backlog instead of just having more backlog piled on top. But yeah, y'all don't want to talk about any of that. Y'all want to sit here and go, oh, we're looking to the future. Things are going to be better whenever all I see is them not enforcing the laws in the books. And in fact, enabling more people to come here illegally and enabling more backlog to be created as opposed to just handling the smaller number of migrants that do decide to cross.
Okay. I feel like we're at an impasse. The most efficient way to enforce this for me would be the way it's already being enforced. You arrest them right there, which is what's happening in this. Which is what's happening in that image. Okay.
You brought up about the election.
Well, let's shift. Yeah. Well, how about the issue of abortion? I feel like that's probably pretty important. And Donald Trump seems to be he's him and hawing on two different sides. He speaks on two different sides of his mouth. On the one hand, everybody thought Roe should have been overturned. This is my doing. I'm brave for this. And on the other hand, well, actually, the Florida abortion ban is too strict. He's like trying to shore up the votes of women. I haven't really talked to J.D. Vance. I'm not really going to sign a national abortion ban, but maybe I am. He doesn't seem to want to pick a side because it's politically convenient for him to be as ambiguous on this as possible. And it's a loser issue for him because the vast majority of this country do want Roe v. Wade to remain the law of the land, and Donald Trump overturned that.
Well, Donald Trump didn't overturn Roe v. Wade.
The judges he appointed did, and he takes credit for it.
SCOTUS did, but I would argue, I mean, there's a lot of people on both sides that actually weren't happy with Roe v. Wade, but I mean, I would argue that It's a states' rights issue. He's let each state decide, and that seems to be kind of the tack Trump is taking. I will agree that it's a toxic issue. It's a poison pill for him. I mean, being as ambiguous as he could on this is probably the best way. I don't think he really wants like if I had to wager, I don't think he wants a national abortion ban. I don't think this is like a top issue for him. I think it's a top issue for many women. Like I'm not going to argue that. How and like many women, like say you live in Texas, for example, as we both do. They, many women are sad, and upset and frustrated that they can't get abortions here. They have to go to another state. However, like the Texas, it seems like the Texas constituency, the large majority wanted that, right? So now did I think that's fair? I don't know. I would prefer it to be a states' rights thing. I think Trump would prefer it to let it be a states' rights thing. It seems like the Dems are pushing it to be a more of a national thing. But yeah, I agree it's a poison pill. I think he's done a pretty good job of being ambiguous on it. But I do think as far as the Dems have done, they've done a very good job hitting this issue to him as like as a thing that he's
Yeah.
oh you're the death of it. Now I don't know that it's necessarily super fair to do that, but I will say they've done a good job, and I do think it's going to affect the election. However, I don't know if it's going to be the. It seems like it's the number one issue among a certain segment of voters, but that segment of voters was never going to vote for him
That
anyway,
segment of
right? Like,
voters, though, is 50% of the country, and it does seem fair to hold this issue to him because he takes
well,
credit for having
it's
it
really only
overturned.
younger women. It's really only younger women. Once you start getting away from the younger women, the abortion issue drops down to like number three.
You think older women don't support the right to abortion?
I think that they care more. I think that people are generally self-interested in, and I think a lot of them are going to push that down the list. I
The
think with the
national
economy being number one,
It's a national issue because
I mean, it is a national issue.
women, yeah, I know, because women nationally are impacted by its effects. It's further a national issue because Republicans on the national level have been talking about trying to institute a national federal ban on abortion. More than that, I'm not convinced that it being a states' rights issue somehow makes the issue less impactful in a negative way to the health of
Well,
women.
this
You
is
wouldn't
this.
argue that a state has the right to reinstitute slavery, and this is tantamount to that.
Well, I would say this though. I like Trump is what is it? He's a big proponent of IMF or IMF. He's like a proponent of some things that some of these states like are not fans of, right? Like Alabama has like come out against some of the stuff like that Trump has been in favor of, and I think there's evidence to support. Like for example, Trump has been throughout his whole career pretty LGBTQ pro, right? It seems like if you
No.
look at like logging his history, he has been pretty pro. Like if you watch The Apprentice or you see some of this, he even has like endorsements from a bunch of trans rights organizations and stuff. Now there have been people lately that have kind of pegged him as not that, but he's even within the Republican Party, he got them with their newest platform to soften a lot of their gay rights issues. They soften their stances. He's much more left than a lot of the people in the conservative party. And I think this is this kind of similar issue. I don't think it's like a issue that he's like wants to die on this hill, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Does it to you? Does it strike you as an issue that Trump is like trying to die on that hill? Like, it seems like he tries to like move to other topics
Yeah, of
because it's
course
not
he
one that
does,
he.
because he
I mean,
looks bad
sure.
for it because he took away the rights of millions of women in this country to protect their own reproductive health care. I don't know why we're
I
pivoting
mean,
to health.
the argument would be that these babies deserve health care too, though. Like that would be the argument from the conservatives.
Okay,
Like that they're like,
after Roe v. Wade was overturned from the Dobbs decision, Indiana's snapback legislation immediately banned abortion without exceptions in its state. A rape victim in Indiana that was 10 years old had to flee that state to get an abortion. Do you think the state should have the right to force a 10-year-old girl to give birth against her will?
I think that if the state's constituency decides that that's what they want to do, then the states are within the rights to decide whatever they have to do.
Okay, so you agree that a state should be allowed to force a 10-year-old child to give birth against her will?
I would say, I mean, as so like once again, I'm adopted, and my kind of response would be I could have been one of these aborted kids because like my father's like an illegal alien, my real father, my biological one, and my biological mother is just like of no importance really, that I'm aware of, and so like I could have easily been aborted, and I feel like I've been very successful. I got lucky, I got into a good loving family, and I was adopted at like 3 days old,
Yeah, I mean,
but
that's
like,
good.
yeah, that's great, right? But like even then even if I hadn't had gotten lucky and I hadn't had a good life, I would at least have liked to have had a shot at life, I think. So yeah, it's shitty.
Okay, all of this
But I
feels like a
also
diversion.
empathize with
I'm
the
just going to
child.
ask the same question
And
again.
it's not a diversion. It's like
Should
I
a
empathize for the
state
baby.
be
Should the baby
allowed
pay for the
to
consequences of the
force a
father?
10-year-old child to give birth against her will? That was my
It's
question.
a it's just a it's a bad faith question. I mean, I
It's
gave
a
you
real thing that happened.
It is a real thing that happened. And if you're that child
And
of
it's a
that
real
10-year-old,
consequence of
you think
abortion
that
bans.
child would want to live or not?
I'm sure the child would want to live. I'm going to ask
So
my
then you
same question
understand.
again.
Yeah. So then,
Should a
sure. Yeah, I think
state be able?
that baby has a right to life as well. Like, I mean,
You don't have a
if
right
you
to another
really,
person's body as a fetus. So I'm going to ask my question again. Should a
why
state be
don't you? Wait,
allowed?
hold on. Why wouldn't you? Because
bec-
right now you're arguing over where you think life begins.
Okay, you tell me when life begins.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not a fucking person that does that, but that's what you're doing right now. You're saying you don't have the right as a fetus, and I would argue
Yes,
that
because
once
I
you're
don't grant
life,
a fetus personhood, because I don't think human life really begins in any meaningful way except by birth. You celebrate your birthday as how old you are, not your conception day.
here's my problem, right? With what you're doing is, yes, you picked a really heinous situation, and I understandably I feel for this girl, right? However, I think you can also grant me this is like an outlier situation. This is generally not the thing that's happening. Most of the time, the abortions are happening due to people not wanting to have, wanting to have consequences from having sex. So, like, yes, I understand that there are heinous situations, there are outlier situations that happen, but it doesn't seem to me that this is the most common thing. And maybe there should be
Okay.
exceptions. If I could write the law, sure, I would write the law with maybe there's some exceptions in there, and I think some states have exceptions to that, some don't, right? I
Sure,
think
let's
Texas is
go
one of the
with
more
let's
advanced.
go with your common case then. Let's say a
But
woman
yeah, the common case,
willingly
yeah, I
has
think that you should.
sex. A woman willingly has sex, she gets pregnant, she doesn't want to have that baby. She is committed to getting an abortion no matter what. Should the state be allowed to force her to give birth against her will?
I mean, yeah, I would think so. Yeah, at that point.
Okay, if she says, I'm a free person, no matter what, I'm going to end this pregnancy, and she starts looking for ways to end her pregnancy, should the state be allowed to restrain her to stop her from doing it?
Mm. Uh, Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
If she successfully gets an abortion, should she go to jail?
I would argue if that she's within a state that says that, then yeah, probably. If
For
you
what
read the law,
crime?
I would say probably murder.
So if she's in a state where the death penalty is practiced, should she get the death penalty?
I mean, did the baby die?
Yeah.
Then possibly.
Okay, so if a woman in the state of Texas gets an abortion in violation of the abortion ban, your position is she should get the death penalty.
That's not my position.
Okay,
That's
I'm asking you,
she
what
should
should the
be able to
state?
be they should be able to be
Okay,
prosecuted,
let me
and
put it
whatever the
another way.
judges hand down,
Should a
then
state be allowed to execute a woman who gets an abortion? That's what I'm asking you.
wait, say it again.
Should a state be allowed to execute a woman who gets an abortion?
No, I mean, I would say generally probably not, but it does seem like a murder to me. Like if you're in that state and you kill it, and I mean, if that's a penalty here for murder, I'm gonna trust the justice system to decide. Like, I mean, as far as I'm aware, I mean, I don't think there's a case of that.
Do
You
you hold
know,
abortion to be murder?
once again, as someone who's been adopted, I would say it's pretty tantamount to a murder. And I also would say this is gonna seem kind of like a misdirect of what I do, but I promise it's not. Is that we talk about women's autonomy with the body, right, and the babies, right? But men aren't able to, like, after the birth is whatever. Like, men don't have any say over this child's life, right? Even though they're 50% of the ones making it. However, if a woman chooses, like for example, and let's say the reverse is true, say the man wants the baby to be aborted, and the woman doesn't. The man has no control of whether or not that baby is aborted, but is still required to pay child support, right? And so, I mean, it seems sort of like in this kind of like dichotomy where the baby's life only matters in certain situations. And like,
If oh sorry.
and that's kind of frustrating because I think the baby's life should come first. I don't like the idea of killing babies, like, whether they're in the womb or not, because, we were all in the womb at some point. We all got lucky enough to be aborted. I feel like if this baby's created just because someone had made a poor decision, they should have the right at life too. I mean, how many of our greatest people would have been never existed just if someone was like, well, I have the choice not to. Like, I mean,
Okay,
tons.
I hear what you're saying about the gender gap. If a woman wants to get an abortion and a man wants to be a father, should the man be able to force the woman to give birth against her will?
I don't think that's no. I mean, I don't think that's the same scenario.
Actually, your scenario was gender reversed. It was if a man wants to force the woman to get an abortion. So I can ask that instead. If a woman wants to have a baby, but a father doesn't want to be paying child support or anything to that effect, should he be able to force the woman to get an abortion?
Uh, I mean, that's really the question, isn't it? I mean, like if you're going to
It
be
is a
paying
question.
child
I'd like
support,
an answer to it.
I don't know. I feel like there should be a way around this for the father, but there's not. I mean, like I've seen cases where people have signed off. I
I
worked
think
at a
you would just
family
sign
law
away
firm.
your parental rights. You can.
So you would think that, but I worked for a law firm here in Texas for for like about a year, and there were several cases where fathers had signed off the rights at birth, and then they ended up having to pay child support later. Like someone came back and got them, and it was a controversy. And then there's even been cases, I think it was in Ohio, of a man being forced to pay child support for kids that weren't even biologically his.
Okay.
Like
I mean, that
so, like
sucks. I don't know what to say
Yeah,
about
that
those
sucks.
cases, but I
So
don't know what your
yeah,
alternative
now,
is. Like,
well,
can
those are outliers, right? But however, you kind of started with an outlier case. The other one, I don't really know. I don't like there's not like really a clear solution for the men on this issue,
I think the
right?
clearest solution is to let women make the choices for what happens to their own body. I think that's the clearest, cleanest way to
But
handle this
the
issue.
baby is their own body. It has their own body, right? Like
No, they
they're
don't. They
separate
have a
entities
body
within an
attached to
entity.
another body.
They're not a parasite. They're not a
I
parasite. I'm
didn't call them
sorry.
a parasite, but they have a body
But
attached to
that's
another
the
body.
argument. Yeah, sure. I mean, okay. Let's just take that argument. If a baby is just born, 3 days old,
Hmm.
all right, they still need their mother to keep them alive. Correct?
Correct.
What's the difference?
They have individual personhood at that point. Bestowed
No, no.
upon them the same way
But
for
on the most
everybody
basic
else
level,
on when
but on
they are
on the
born.
most basic level, though, they're still not able to be independent of their mother. Correct?
Correct.
There's no difference, like really, if you like get down to the most basic
A
level.
mother
Like
has an
what? Like
alternative to surrendering her parental rights without the termination of that life. That's the difference.
I don't. No, I mean, they still can't live without outside help. Is my point. Like
And the mother can get outside help. Wait, the
I'm
mother
not
can't.
buying it. It just sounds like you're really like being real nitpicky here. And like I know that
I'm answering your
once again,
questions
I'm not a
directly.
woman. Sure, I feel like it's a little bit of a cop out. I'll be honest. I'm not
Hang
buying
on.
that.
What did I say that was a cop out? I answered your questions directly.
It's they're fundamentally not different. If one can't survive on its own, then in either capacity, it's the same situation.
No, it
Like
is not. The fundamental difference is the attachment to another human being's body and the using of that body. That's the fundamental difference. The physical attachment to another human being's body is what makes that different.
so so I could take a 3-year-old baby, a 3-day old baby, and suckle him up to my nipple, and it would survive.
Okay.
Is that true?
Well, not for you. I don't think you lactate. But if you do, you need to see a doctor. But
Right.
you tell me.
So not hold on. So not anybody could do that then.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that.
So yeah, so not anybody. So you still need a certain set of requirements, preferably the mother,
Hmm.
because that's the one who's generally supposed to be doing it.
Yeah.
I want like what I'm saying. I don't know. I mean, and this once again, you're talking about the election. Now we're getting really into the nitty gritty with me personally. We're coming back to the election. I mean, I don't think this is the issue that's going to decide. I feel like decide the election. I feel like what more important issues are is that people are fed up, and like I think even on the left and the right, and the whole reason people turn to Trump is, and this is something I don't think the left understands, is why people on the right have turned to Trump is because they're sick of the status quo, right? And the status quo is bad, and then we keep getting told things are good. Like I can't tell you how many people told me, "Oh, this jobs report." It's so good. And I'm like, well, didn't the other jobs report take 3 months and then we found out it was all bullshit? How do we know this is gonna be any different, right? Like, it's like every time something's good, we found out the crime statistics from 2022. Well, actually, they're way higher now. Now that we know, like, it's like we feel that Biden. Oh, we were told for 3.5 years. Best, he's sharp as a tack. Joe Scarborough brought up before Biden went on there. Literally, this is the most sharp I've ever seen Biden. Then he went on the debate stage and looked like the Crypt Keeper. It's like the American public is lied to. They're saying, oh, the John Report said, or what was the thing that came out? Oh, people aren't working. Only 3% of people are working 2 jobs, but then they only factor in jobs that are 40 hours a week. And it's like, bro, everybody's got a second job. Like, I'm working 3 jobs. No, I mean, I own 3 businesses, but I'm working 3 jobs. And then I know everybody's got like, I'm working DoorDash. You got somebody working their main job. Someone's doing like Twitch. Everybody's got a side hustle now. Everybody's got to. Yeah, they might not work 40 hours a week, but everybody's got two. And it's like everybody's just going, Come on, y'all are just straight lying to us. And I think people are sick of it. I think that's going to be the biggest factor in the election if we really get down to it. Not like issues like abortion. I think immigration and I think is probably number two, and I think that economy is going to be number one. I don't think people are buying, especially when you go to the grocery store and cumulative inflation since 2020 is at 21% or 20.5%. And depending on which metric you look at, or if I go to the gas station and gas is like, I guess lower right now, but generally gas has been at like over three something. I mean, even now it's lower, but it's still high. Like, I don't know. It just, I don't think people are buying what their people are selling right now. I mean, do you feel like they are? Do you feel like the economy's good?
Okay. I don't know why we just pivoted from abortion to this, other than it seems inconvenient to talk about it.
I mean, I just
You
don't think you wanted
said,
to talk about the election. I don't know what
well,
further you want to go down with that. I mean, you're asking like my personal opinions on abortion as opposed to like,
I
I
think
mean,
your
what do you think?
personal
How do I think it's
opinions
going to affect
matter,
the
but what your
elections?
argument was that this isn't an issue that people are voting by or it doesn't affect them. Telling you that's factually wrong. An issue a
I don't think it's
lot
but
is
that
an issue
segment's not going to vote for
millions of
Trump anyway.
voters. The election is made up of more people than are just voting for Trump. An issue that is driving people to the polls is an issue they are voting on.
You
It
think it's
wasn't
a
an
bigger
issue they
issue than the
care.
economy? You think it's a bigger issue than the economy?
Yes, because it's not. It speaks to a more fundamental question than the economy. Economies tank and bounce back all the time. Your body being incubated, used as an incubator against your will, like that's not something you come back from, and it's a very heinous crime against humanity that Republicans are cheerleading, and the very real issue, the
But
very real
do you
worry is that they
understand the
will continue to
Republican side?
cheerlead it
The
if they.
Republican side is it's a crime against humanity that you're killing babies.
Yes, I understand the Republican side. The Republicans are wrong. They are wrong about this, right? Shouldn't have the right to use another person's body for your own purposes against their will. We have prohibitions against slavery for the same reason. If you want to say it's a life, it's for the same reason we don't tell people they have to donate organs or blood against their will. For the same reason we ban slavery. You can't just use somebody's body for some other purpose against their will. We make an exception to women on one historical basis in this country, and that was with the beginning of the women's rights movement. Legislation to ban abortion started to happen on the pretext that it was protecting women's health care. 50 years, Roe versus Wade was the law of the land, and Donald Trump is responsible for ending that 50-year streak.
I mean, I'm
Women
looking up right
today have
now.
fewer rights today than they did on my mom's generation.
I'm looking up like right now, like polls, what people are saying the key issue are. Everything says number one, economy, or number one, immigration. These are the number one and two, basically, and they're interchangeable. Number three and four are crime. Most have crime at three, and then abortion's number four. So like, yeah, and once again, and this is kind of the reason why I'm pivoting a little bit, is because I agree with what Icy just said, is that I don't know that two childless men. I mean, I don't know if you're childless or not. At least I am. That arguing about their personal feelings on abortion, is really going to be like a dividing thing when it in regards to the election. Well, I'm trying to sit here and talk like, what do you think is going to
So
be more important to the election?
it's
I mean,
it's
I
it's
think
important to
economy is going to
me,
be the number one.
Gibbs. It's important to me because I don't want to be childless, and I have a sister, I have a girlfriend. The idea that they could be forced to give birth against their will should they suffer a violent rape that impregnates them, or a fetal complication that scares the living shit out of them. The idea that their motherhood or health could be threatened, or they could be septic and die because they don't have access to the healthcare they need, does affect me. It is important to me. The only way it can matter to you is if you have some empathy for the women around you, and I'm sure you have women around you that probably do care about this issue.
Do you agree that rape is illegal?
Yeah, I agree, rape is illegal.
Okay, so rape is illegal, right? It's already an outlying incident when this happens, right? That's a bad thing, right? And like I've already agreed, I would like some exceptions within the states when they do this for rape and whatnot. I think that's fair. I do feel for the child, but like I once again, I get why it's an important issue to you. I also have a sister. I have female cousins. These are all the things. But once again, if we're talking about the issues that are voted on, like the national polls are all saying the number one issue is economy or immigration. Those are the two ones. And yeah, I do think there's a large segment of women that are concerned about this. However, most of those women were not going to vote for Trump anyway. And so, like I said, as they get older, women tend to care a little bit less about the abortion issue compared to other things, based off what the polls are saying and based off what all our data suggests. So, like, I mean, do you not like? I mean, I don't know what more you want to gain from this. You're not,
We can
on
move
the
on.
abortion topic, but
Yeah, we can
yeah,
move on. If you're not
but yeah,
comfortable delving into it any further, I like this topic because I think
sure.
it's a good. It speaks to the values of a lot of people and what they hold valuable. And in your case, it's wealth, and for mine, it's freedom. So I think we very severely
But what
differ
about the
on this.
baby's freedom?
Yeah, I don't think a fetus is a baby. I think a baby is somebody who's born.
All
If
right,
you like,
that's
we can
fair.
continue talking about that.
No,
If you want to
that's
interrogate my
fine.
position, I'm
No,
game. You can
I
interrogate my position all day long. I'm not
no,
afraid to run from this. I don't
no,
afraid
it's
of this
fine.
topic.
I'm not afraid. I just don't see much more we're gonna
Sure.
gain. I
Well,
mean,
we'll
I feel
talk
like
about
I
the
get.
economy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Let's move to the
Uh,
economy. What do you think this is an issue? Like, what do you think things are better?
yeah. When Trump left office, unemployment was at like 15%. Yeah. Donald Trump was like an agent of chaos the entire time he was in office. Like the unemployment was dropping under Donald Trump, which is just great because it's been continuing a trend of Obama's economy. One time Donald Trump ever actually gets to implement his own policies, what do you got? You got two things: tariffs, which increase the cost of consumer goods, and a tax increase. A tax cut where 80% of the savings go to the wealthiest 1% of Americans. Can you name one policy of Donald Trump, one economic policy of Donald Trump that benefited the lower and middle class more than it benefited the rich?
More than a bit of it. I mean, that's really debatable. I mean, I think that I breathe pretty heavily in trickle down economics. It seems to work. I mean, I benefited quite a bit. And I don't think I'm rich. I mean, from all the Trump's policies. I mean, I also benefit a lot from Texas's policies.
Can
Like,
you
I mean,
name
like
a policy that has benefited the lower and middle class more than it benefited the rich? That was my question.
I, I mean, I'll say this. I can't. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think that's arguable, though, right? Like, you could argue any of these policies benefited
Mm,
people to
no.
varying degrees. Yeah,
Factually
sure.
speaking, the tax cut that Donald Trump passed, the majority of the savings for that went to the wealthiest 1%. Factually speaking,
But
that's just a factually
did
true
the other
statement.
did the other people benefit?
Yeah, they benefited, but they didn't benefit more than the
Right.
rich.
So they benefit. Okay. So when you say more, right? This is the thing. Say like I have $10 million, right?
Okay.
And I benefit, and Trump saves me, I don't know, $3 million, right?
Okay.
I'm just about picking round numbers. Say I'm the poorest of the poor, and Trump's tax cut, and I only have $50 in the bank, but Trump's tax cuts managed to make allowed me to save $1,000 in the bank. Who benefited more in that scenario?
The rich.
No,
By miles, yeah. The poor are gonna
no,
burn through that
no,
$1,000 in like a month,
no,
man.
because a
The
thousand
the
dollars
rich
for
with
a
$3
poor
million
person is
dollars in savings can
no.
grow
That's
that
not how economics
exponentially.
works.
What do you mean? If you have $3 million more in savings, you can invest that in ways that grow it exponentially. If you got
Yeah,
a
but if
thousand
you get
from a
a
tax
thousand
cut,
dollars,
you are
if you
struggling
get
to
a
live.
no, if you get $1,000, that is immediately more impactful than somebody who's already rich getting like I don't know 30% back. Like if you have suddenly what is 50 into $1,000 benefit, that's what like I don't even know what the percentage increase on that is. That's almost a what $20,000 20,000% increase. So yeah, you
Okay.
benefited way
That
more.
person with $50 in his bank who just got that $1,000 back in tax returns, what do you think his life's gonna look like 6 months? You think he's gonna be right back where he was, or you think he's gonna be rolling in dough?
I mean, that's based off their own economic decisions. I mean, maybe they do
Let's
better.
take a
Maybe they.
guess on. Let's just assume it's the average person making average economic decisions. Is he going to be right back where he was, or is he going to be rolling in dough?
I mean, I think they'll be better off. Yeah.
I think so.
I don't know about rolling in dough, but I think they'll be better off. They're going to have more of a cushion. Maybe they're able to pay more down on some credit cards. They can maybe. I mean, it's simple math.
A
I don't know
thousand
what you're.
dollars, $1,000 in return, dude, is a month's worth of minimum wage work. What you're talking about?
Yeah, all at once. That's a massive. That's a massive amount.
Okay, nobody living off minimum wage income is doing well. Donald Trump's policy didn't do anything except preserve the status quo for people who already do not earn. They did not get a lot of money. Now, if you're rich and you got that $3 million back, $3 million can grow a lot. You invest in the right stocks, that's going to grow exponentially. When you're poor, you don't have the luxury to invest that thousands of dollars. You need to pay for your bills. You need to pay for your living, your
That
food,
gives you a
your
cushion.
clothing.
That quite a cushion can be quite a bit of a benefit. You can start saving a lot of money if you get a cushion.
Okay, they didn't get enough money to invest. They didn't get enough money to grow that money, right? The majority of, this is what I was saying, the majority of those savings went to the wealthiest Americans.
You do agree that 1/10 is bigger than 1/100th?
Yes.
Okay, so the math indicates that the poor got a higher percentage increase per capita, like per person.
Right. I'm not convinced this is a good way to look at this economic problem. There is such a thing. There is such a thing.
Arguing that
it's a math without context. It's a math without context. There is such a thing as economies of scale. $1,000 might be a lot. It might mean a lot to a poor person. Yeah, $1,000 would help me right now, dog. Right, $1,000 can go a long way. I don't disagree with that. It's not the majority of the savings from that tax bill did much more for the richest Americans who didn't all have an equal say in how it was shared. Right. I think if you're the poorest person, you are largely still in the status quo of where you were if you got $1,000 back. That's just true. $1,000 is shit money. Yeah, it can help. It's shit money. Donald Trump's economic policies. No, we are exaggerating that word massively. The earned income tax credit, what the average return for that's like $3,000 or $4,000. That helps massively. The Biden-Harris tax credit for childcare, that helped massively. That actually reduced the rate of child poverty. It cut it in half, dude. That helped massively. It was targeted. It was intelligent. Student debt relief would affect millions of people and grow the wealth.
Oh, okay. Student debt relief
would help massively.
Why should I pay for someone?
Because it gives you a return on the investment for the most educated Americans. The people who are who possess the most human capital now have the financial incentive to start their own businesses or invest in themselves in a way that can further grow the economy.
Hold on, let's just examine that. I would agree with that statement if we limited it to degrees, and this would actually exclude my undergrad, to degrees that we see contributing a significant financial margin to. So I would X off most liberal arts degrees from that, like political science, even maybe. I'm a political science undergrad. Not all of them, like psychology, maybe not. But we could go through there. Anything like gender studies, this shouldn't get a student debt with how much do you provide economically to benefit the American? You're not getting return on investment with studies with stuff like that. There's a whole bunch of them. What about art degrees? What economic pushback do we get on art? I would have to see an actual economic breakdown that shows how many art majors are actually producing economic benefits to the United States, right? I would want to go through and see a specific per degree, each degree. And then if we could say, all right, these degrees we're getting ROIs and these degrees aren't, then yeah, sure, let's fucking do it. But and this is why I'm not a libertarian, but I haven't seen that. And what I have seen is just a blanket a proposal that anybody gets this. And I don't want my tax dollars to go to some bullshit degree where they're in a fucking barista at Starbucks. That's ridiculous. How does that give me ROI? All right, tell me.
Okay, I looked it up while you were talking. The average annual salary for a gender studies degree holder in the United States is $58,020, with a range of $40,000 to $96,000. Actually, minimum wage. I'm sorry, middle class. I don't know what that's barely up. That's about middle class. Barely.
It's like 45,000 or 30,000.
Then you know what would help? Forgiving student debt would give them more of their spending power to get them to allow them to elevate levels.
But how are we paying for the student debt? How are we paying for the student debt?
What do you mean? You just forgive it from the United States government. We forgive debt all the time. There are people who default on their debt. You know what they do? They write it off.
For banks are credit loaned amount of money.
I'm talking about Stafford loans.
You're only talking about Stafford loans.
Federally guaranteed?
Yeah, okay. Many loans are federally guaranteed. That's not my question.
I'm not sure. Okay, maybe I don't understand your question. Can you tell me what it is then?
Just because it's guaranteed by the government, right, doesn't mean the banks are going to go, okay, it's forgiven. The U.S. government's going to have to pay the banks.
Okay.
That's with my tax dollars, with our tax dollars.
Yeah, they also paid millionaires with those tax cuts with my tax dollars too.
How do they pay millionaires with tax cuts?
What do you mean? That's money that's going into the treasury that's now being refunded back to the richest people. That's money I pay taxes to as well.
It's their money being going back to them.
Right.
It's only their money being returned to them, not your money. Your money's not going to them. Their money is returning to them. Is that correct?
No, not really.
How do you figure? If it's a
I,
tax cut,
it's
they're getting their money back.
it's incorrect because the money that goes to support the programs that fund the United States government are all made up of tax dollars that are deposited into the Treasury. That money is a collective money of the people of the United States that is intended to fund certain programs. And when you deficit spend, which is what Donald Trump did, because he didn't increase any revenue anywhere else, he cut the amount of revenue coming into the government, which grew the debt. He shifted the balance, the burden of that debt onto me. So yeah, they might be getting their money back. What's going to happen is I'm going to have to pay more for the debt in generations on because the government cut the amount of revenue it was receiving. All he's done is increase the debt burden.
Or check this out. Hey, this is a wild one.
Okay.
Maybe, and this is going to sound a little maggy, but and I disagree with maybe about a portion of what I'm about to say. Maybe we cut funding to some of these other countries. Maybe we cut funding, and that's part I disagree on. I mean, maybe I like some of the funding for these other, but I can see other countries. Maybe we do cut funding too. Maybe we cut some of these welfare programs, and then we also give the money back to the people that their tax dollars are going to. I don't see why.
Let's say we do that, right?
Yeah, why would we do it? We would increase the amount being spent, and we give some of the people their money back.
So the obvious issue with that with me is that all you're going to do is increase poverty. In turn, increases crime. You've made the rich more comfortable. You've given them more money. They don't have to be exposed to the crime, but the rest of us do. Right? And when you cut those welfare programs,
me and small business owners, so we can invest in our businesses, which decreases crime and increases economic opportunity within neighborhoods.
There is no evidence that this money goes back into forming new businesses. Primarily, this money goes back to buying back stocks. They pay themselves out to itself. They pay the savings from this out to themselves in dividends. The vast majority of these savings go to the wealthiest 1%, and it's paid out to them in stock buybacks. That's what they do. Like, if you like, I can find you what's the fucking Brookings Institute? It's not the Brookings Institute. It's something else. I can find you the study on this, where like the vast majority of savings go.
That doesn't change anything I said, though. Like, why would that?
But it doesn't address what I said. Either.
No, hold on. If they decrease welfare programs, right, and then they decrease they give tax cuts back to the people, and that's all people. That means everybody has more money in their pocket to spend. That should, in theory, increase the economy, because guess what? Business owners will want to reinvest in their businesses or reinvest in spending. Spending is something we want people to be doing, right? So that's good. That means they're spending, they're buying. That helps the American greenback be stronger. That it helps the American economy boom. We have more people producing by American. Like, there's nothing by what you're saying that like indicates that wouldn't happen, because if by all evidence that's generally what does happen. Is like,
what evidence do you have for this claim? That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Poverty still climbed under Donald Trump.
But hold on a minute. We're at a 15-year high for homelessness right now as of this year.
What?
So 15-year high for homelessness. Okay. So clearly poverty has climbed, despite whatever statistic that you want to hit me with.
I'm not denying that. That only proves my point that these tax cuts aren't working. Donald Trump did a tax cut. Poverty's only climbed. George W. Bush did a big tax cut. He actually did two. Poverty's only climbed. Ronald Reagan did a tax cut. Poverty's only climbed. You keep saying they're fantastic. It's objectively making our problems worse.
How? How do you?
By making poverty climb. I don't know another way to put it.
Poverty's climbing because of Democratic policies, not because of tax cuts.
Okay. And the cutting of the welfare state, you don't think that causes poverty to climb?
No, because if you give a man a fish, whatever. If you teach a man a fish, even better.
So the Republican answer to homelessness, is it tax cuts?
The Republican answer to homelessness would be to probably outlaw homelessness, force people to get jobs.
Okay, if people don't get jobs, they go to jail?
I mean, possibly. I mean, maybe. I mean, maybe they can't be allowed in certain areas. Like, I mean, Austin banned homelessness because they were getting a ton of sexual assaults, right? And then that became a big issue with the Palestinian-Israel protests, because they didn't realize why they had banned homelessness until they sit in the
Do you think a homeless person has? Do you think it's easy for a homeless person to get a job?
Sure. McDonald's is always hiring.
Always hiring, and you can stop being homeless on a McDonald's salary. You think?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the
I mean,
Republican answer? So the Republican answer to homelessness is to criminalize homelessness and give tax cuts to rich people. What's the Republican answer
I'm not even
to?
saying criminalize homeless. I'm just like saying criminalize camping. They can go, be homeless somewhere not
Actually,
near.
what's your word? Oh, well, I mean that just shifts the burden. They're still homeless. So what's the Republican answer to homelessness?
Yeah, I mean, get a job, really. I mean, like, stop giving out handouts. I mean, people are so dependent on handouts, they don't have to work anymore.
So the Republican answer to homelessness is do nothing. Just tell people to get a job.
Wait, hold on. How? This is what's crazy to me is you're pro letting everybody in here, and at the same time, you're like, hey, we should just give out handouts to all these homeless when we're at a 15-year high. Like,
Okay, I'm gonna
like,
pause you right there.
how do we handle both?
That's a nice deflection. What did I say? I was pro letting everybody in here.
That's what you said, basically. You
When
were
did,
like, no,
that's what I said basically. I think I said the border being open was an issue, and I advocated for a border that would have closed. I'm sorry, a bill that would have closed the border. I'm not pro letting everybody in here.
but you didn't advocate for a bill that closed the border.
Yes, I did. It would have capped immigration at 5,000 a day
All
or
right,
closed
and
the
how does that
border.
stop the illegal immigration from air? Like that doesn't stop that. Okay, we're not going back into that. But my
We're
point is,
not. You're just putting
you're
words in my
literally,
mouth.
you're literally allowing a
Gibbs,
larger influx of
what you're
people in,
doing is
while
you're.
simultaneously denying that we have a homeless. Or
Okay.
I guess I
I'm
don't know what
not
you're
denying
denying.
that. I'm
So
pointing. I'm
okay,
shining a light to the homelessness and the lack of Republican policies to address it. What you
yeah,
did to, what you
the
did,
problem
what
is
you did, what you did to address that was to put words in my mouth and claim something. I believe something I don't believe. I've never
but you
claimed
do
that.
believe that. Like
I'm.
even if you're like not outright saying it, this is the issue. I have what you're doing right now. You're literally going, hey, all right, we want to like cap it at 5,000 a day, which is a wildly high number anyway. But okay, fine. Let's just grant you that. We already have a 15-year high on homelessness. We've had these Democrat programs like welfare, food stamps, all these things for decades. It's not fixed the homeless problem. In fact, it seems like it's exacerbated the homeless problem to the point that we're at a 15-year high under Biden Kamala, right? And so your idea is even if we go by what you said let's allow only 5K in people a day, which I don't know what 365 times 5K is, still a lot of people, but we're gonna let all these people in
Realize if
for
it's
the day,
5K, they close the border.
sure, and for the
It's
day,
not going to be. It's not per day. It's close the border because the Department of Homeland Security
for
the
the day.
authority to close the border.
Yeah, okay, and I want you to think about how logistically impossible that. What are they going to be doing? Counting each person with a ticker like they do at the club at each place, and when they hit 5K nationwide, they're going to hit a buzzer and slam gates down across the whole border? No, that's ridiculous. That's not going to work. It's implausible. But let's just say that it did
Okay.
work. So we're going to have 5K people a day flooding in. All right, that's still a lot of people. Flood's the right word. And then we have a 15-year high for homelessness, right? Which your solution is be okay, we need to increase these welfare programs or at least not stop funding them because they're working so well, which they're not because clearly we're at a 15-year high. And your argument is Republicans don't have a solution. And our solution is, well, let's fucking get rid of these programs and see what it's like when people flounder. And maybe when people stop living off the tea to government, they'll actually get off their ass to go work and stuff. And I like, to me, yeah, I think that might be the solution now at this point. And I'm not sympathetic. I'm definitely sympathetic to that. I don't know, see how you can argue that you're not saying these things.
I don't know any other way to argue I'm not saying these things other than to say I'm not saying these. If you want to keep putting words in my mouth, that's fine. It's just not going to be a very fruitful conversation. When it comes to homelessness, I think we can be a little bit more creative than just saying, well, outlaw homelessness or ban camping and shift the issue around, saying, well, you just get a job, and with a job at McDonald's, you can certainly buy a house or support yourself with a house, or you can afford housing, is what I mean. That doesn't seem feasible, and it seems very apparent to me Republicans don't have a plan to address homelessness. They don't have a plan to address poverty. They don't have a plan to address healthcare. They have consistently been the party of no. All these issues they have never worked to address.
What, like, all right.
I'll ask for
So,
the healthcare one. What's the Republican plan for healthcare? Because they voted against the PACT Act and they voted against Obamacare.
yeah, I mean, I wish we had stopped both of those. I mean, private healthcare, like buy your own insurance. I mean, remember when the Dems
Okay, a
told
person
when the
can't afford their
Obama,
own insurance. Now what?
that's tough tits. Work harder.
If a person can't afford insurance, should they just die? Be allowed to die?
No, I mean the emergency rooms can take care of them. I mean that's been the law for a while, but
So if a
I
person
mean,
can't afford insurance, they should just wait till their condition gets so bad they go to the ER to treat it?
yeah, basically that's kind of my take on it. I
The
mean, like,
ER only
why?
has to stabilize them. It doesn't cure them, though.
Sure.
Realize it's
Well,
just going to kill them.
let me ask you this: why should my tax dollars go to their health issues?
Because it makes us a better society.
Now, fuck that. That's a terrible argument. Why? Why should I like be forced with a gun to my head to pay for Bob? like in his cancer treatment? Why should I have to do that?
Because if you pay for Bob's cancer treatment, he can go back to work and continue producing stuff that helps this economy, helps you.
What? That's like not like no. You can just replace Bob. There's already a million immigrants. I'll just replace Bob with somebody healthy. Why would I? Why would I want to do that? Like that doesn't make any sense, even by your own metric.
If Bob cannot afford his health care, needs to get a treatment to survive, you're an advocate of letting Bob die.
You're literally arguing that people are entitled to other people's labor.
Yes, it's called taxes. I'm going to ask the question again. You're an advocate of letting Bob die. He cannot afford treatment.
You know what? Sure.
Gibbs, are you a Christian?
Yeah. I would also argue the church.
Are you sure you're a Christian?
Yeah.
You think Jesus would agree with your position?
Jesus would say, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and give unto God what is God's. Yeah, I mean they're totally different. He separates.
Jesus also said that what you do to the least amongst us, you do. You're killing Jesus.
Once again, what's really interesting about Jesus is he also advocates a lot for the church to do stuff and private citizenry to do stuff. I've never once advocated against churches stepping in and private citizens stepping in. However, I do have an issue with the government stepping in saying you have to do this. Like you also argue.
I'm sorry, didn't you just say render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's?
Yeah, which is fine. Hold on. Right. This is the thing. Like, there's a reason why tax collectors are looked so badly upon in the Bible. If you look on, like, because they're considered evil people, right? Tax collectors are considered evil. So you're advocating against even what Jesus taught, which back in the day, they're even arguing that tax collectors are evil. And they're sitting here going, hey, we're going to ignore that part to advocate for this other part. When Jesus very much advocates not for the government stepping in, unless it's the kingdom of God, which at that point is post scarcity. He argues for private citizens and government churches to step in, which is kind of what I'm arguing. The government shouldn't be stepping in and going, "Hey, you're a doctor, do this or else." Like, "Hey, you're whatever, you should be paying for this or else." Like, if I refuse to pay taxes, I go to jail, right? Like, that's ridiculous. If a doctor refuses to work on a patient, they can go to jail. You're arguing, sitting here going, they're entitled to their labor, and it's not just taxes.
Gotcha.
Like, you're basically advocating for slavery.
Okay. Any final words? This has been, if nothing else, it's been a fun conversation. I can't say it's been a particularly fruitful conversation, but it's at least been a fun one. Do you have anything else you'd like to add, or anything else you'd like to talk about?
No, that's it. I think that's fine. This is a good place, stopping point. It's been enjoyable. We'll have to plan something else in the future here. Maybe we'll get you on a bigger panel or some kind. And we can,
oh yeah, if you do panels, by all means, shoot me an invite.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely start doing more panels starting next month. I'll host them my own.
You're hosting your own panels? That seems. What's your?
Yeah.
What's your? I feel like I know your Twitch, but I don't know your.
It's Admiral Gibbs, Twitch.tv.
No, let me rephrase it. I feel like I'm following your Twitch, but I haven't been on Twitch in forever. I don't really stream on Twitch.
Yeah, it's Admiral Gibbs on Twitch. Yeah, I've hosted a few kind of like test runs, and I'm definitely gonna start hosting more.
You streaming this on Twitch now?
Yeah, we're live now.
How many are watching?
29.
What's their reception? How are they liking it?
Wait, say it again. That's pretty good. I mean, I have a fairly conservative base.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they're big fans of me.
Yeah, so they weren't super fans, but like it's always fun to walk into hostile territory. I think I always go on the lefty shows and read all the fun comments.
That's where I saw you. That's where we met. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. I like to. I mean, but yeah, I mean, it's been a very active chat. So I mean, it's been good. I mean, you got some supporters in there, but yeah, it's been good content. I've enjoyed it. Like No Count Mike is over here shouting you up. But yeah, you're more than welcome to come back. Well, like I'll definitely get organized and plan something. Like I said, I'm kind of busy till next week with I have a guest here, but then I have like several organized shows coming down the pipe.
Gotcha.
So
all right. Well, we're in San Antonio, man. I do Smash parties. I'm telling you, like, we want to play Smash Party sometime.
Yeah, like I said, I'm down to start next week. Just let me know and we can plan.
Shit, you're on the west side, right?
Yeah, I live like the Marbach 410 area. In the ghetto. We gentrified this neighborhood.
All right, gentrification's a good thing. It's good for the economy. All right, I'll see you later, buddy. Peace, love, rock and roll. Have a good night.
All right, Papa, you be good.